It's Dan here from Real Brave, here with Nick. We are here today to do Guitar 4. This is the fourth lesson. We're on the practice portal today. You haven't seen us in a little bit because we've been doing a little bit of a revamp here. And if you're on Practice Pad, you're getting these lessons included in your membership, which is super duper. So we have Nick here with us today. Nick is a Real Brave instructor. He's been doing a smash-up job here in the practice portal and all of the lessons that we do. Nick, how are you today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing great. Looking forward to getting to today's lesson. So what were you playing over there, Nick?
So I was just playing an E blues. The blues is what we call a form. It's just a series of chord changes that like a lot of songs will use. So that could actually be any number of songs, but I wasn't really playing any particular one. I was just sort of playing with the chords. This particular like cycle of chords is one of the oldest ones that like exists in this country and is pretty like unique to American music. And I think anyone will tell you is like influenced a lot of the music that you hear today and just like popular music and everything like that.
Okay, so how did you do all that stuff you just did just now?
Yeah, so it's actually it's pretty simple. A lot of what you were hearing me doing and a lot of what you will hear me do is improvising, which means I'm kind of just making stuff up in between the chords with like a given set of parameters, but more on that later. Mostly, the foundation of this is three chords, three pretty simple chords. You got E7, and you got A7, and you got B7. Nice, you got them right there on screen. So up on the screen we have we have a couple things. We have for each chord we have the small 3-string version of the chords, because most of the chords that we've been doing in these lessons up to this point have been shrunk down to 3 strings. But also, if you look, for each chord here, there's a fourth note, and it's filled in red, and that's what we call the root of the chord. We're going to come back to that in a bit. So for now, just focus on the 3 kind of top notes. So for E7, we've got. You can do what we've been doing with each of the chords that we learned up to this point, where you try strumming it. Ooh. The guitar's a little out of tune. There you go. You try just giving it a nice strum. We got first finger on our first fret of the G string. You can try picking through it. Still out of tune. There we go. The next chord we have is A7, and this needs a couple extra fingers, but it's still not too complicated. We've got our first finger on the second fret of the G string. We've got our second finger on the second fret of the B string, and our third finger is going to go right on the third fret of the top string, the E string. And same as before, as always, you want to make sure that you're nice and like on the tips of your fingers, that your wrist is pretty relaxed, that you're not. If you feel any sort of stress in your arm or anything, you probably want to just like let yourself reset. So that's just an idea of what it should sound like. This is just me picking through it, going up and going down. So that's our A7. Like we always say, take a minute to kind of get to know it. Don't rush. And our third chord is the B7. So this one, similar to A, you get your second finger on the second fret of the G string. Then you have your open B string. And then with your third finger, you play the second fret of the E string. And this one is extra important to have your fingers nice and like on the tips, because if you don't, you might your second finger is going to kind of rock onto that open B, and it's going to mute it. So if you're just getting this sound, all you need to do is just drop your wrist a little bit more, and then you'll get that open string. Facebook user says, isn't that also an A7 sus4? If you're talking about the A chord, an A7 sus4 would look like this. And the A7 looks like this. So it's actually the difference between the second fret on the B string and the third fret. So it's a small difference, but it's a pretty, I would say, a pretty big difference in terms of sound. Here's this sus chord that you're asking about, and here's the 7 chord that we're using. The difference for me, and without getting too into the weeds here, is this sound. This is a very warm, kind of round sound in the sus chord. And if you drop it down, you get some bite. This is what we call a tritone. And this is what, actually, this is a good chance to say, this is what gives the blues that, it has a distinctively kind of dissonant sound to it. Like, you know, you hit that tritone a lot, and it's a really sharp, kind of like gritty sound. So you actually really want to embrace that in the A7. So yeah, those are the 3 chords. One more time, we got E7, A7, and B7. So there you go. And once you have those shapes down, what we want to work on is how to play them for the right amounts of time and in the right order as well. So this is when we start talking about form.
Yeah.
We get that second picture.
So when you get that down, let's say like someone who's got that down already, how do you go about like adding stuff? I can wait, it's this way. You do this.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, really, what I'm doing is I'm mostly pulling notes from the E minor pentatonic scale. We'll talk more about why it's called that later. But for now, the important part is that it's super easy to play. But even actually, before we get into the scale, what we want to talk about first is, like I was saying, the form of the song. Because if you just have those 3 chords, but you don't really know where to play them, it's going to be really hard to sort of, if you're trying to play along with somebody else or a recording that you like, unless you have like an amazing ear and you can just hear everything perfectly, which if you do, more power to you, you're going to get lost pretty easily. So we want to work, in addition to actually just playing the chords, but like how to sort of keep track of this cycle. So I think we've got a graphic as well for the form. Go and throw that up.
Coming soon, maybe.
Perfect. There we go. Yeah. So breaking down what we have here a little bit, we got a bunch going on. So we have 12 measures. The measure is just the space between those vertical lines. The blues, you'll sometimes hear people call it a 12-bar blues. The reason that you hear that is because it has 12 measures. Measures and bars are kind of used interchangeably. Doesn't really matter why. So yeah, we have 4 bars per line. If you're curious, those weird sort of like division signs just mean you repeat the last bar. So E7 goes for the first 4 bars, 4 measures of the form. So we have E7, 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 then A7 for 2 measures, back to E7, and then we have what we call the turnaround. The turnaround is the last 4 measures that literally turns it back around to the beginning of the form. So this is a cycle thing. Our turnaround is B7 to A7 to E7 and back to B7. And if that seems like a lot, you don't have to worry about memorizing it. You can take a second here and scribble it down, or we'll just keep it up in the video so you can actually just be looking at this the whole time and follow along. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to play this form through maybe once or twice. And I'm going to play it pretty pared down compared to what I was doing at the beginning. So I'm going to put the improvising and the kind of ornamenting aside for now. We'll come back to that. And this is just an opportunity if you want to just like play along with a really simple version of the form. You can use those 3 chord shapes that we had at the beginning and try to follow along with both what I'm doing and with the image that's on your screen right now. So here we go. I'll count it off here. Here's the chord note. We go 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm actually going to pause 1 sec. I'm going to, in addition to this, the higher shapes, I'm going to include those low notes. Don't let that throw you. You can totally just play the small shapes. If I include the low notes myself, it'll just kind of sound a little bit fuller. So just wanted to give that little disclaimer. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. Two, 3. Going to A7. Back on E7. Here's coming B7. E7. I'm going to go through that one more time. A7. A7. So that was 2 times through the form. Kind of ended a bar early because I just felt like doing some fancy harmonics. But yeah, so that's the form. If you were having trouble remembering like how to play each chord, you can always go back in the video to the first few minutes where we were going over the chord shapes and really make sure that you have those down before you start throwing them into the form. But that's like the second step if you're ready for it. So yeah, the next layer, I guess, would be kind of ornamenting it, improvising. Like we said, we are pulling notes from our E minor pentatonic scale.
I was muted, but I was saying you were doing that just now. You were improvising a little bit. You were trying to sing through your instrument, right?
Just a tiny, yeah, I couldn't resist.
Yeah, I know. I mean, you can't, right? Like it's hard because it's there, and you want to sing because you've been doing it for so long. So sing through your instrument. What is that?
Yeah, I mean, so I say that to a lot of my students. If you've taken a lesson with me before, you've definitely heard me say that. I think especially, I mean, I'll say this. That's a good rule of thumb whenever you're playing. But especially with blues music, I think it's really important to remember that this music, in its truest form, like originally, was vocal music. And even if you're playing a solo on guitar, you still want to be emulating and like following that sort of sound, that tradition. So, you know, if you're adding notes, what you want to be trying to do is play melodies, play melodically, play something that you could sing. Or if you don't like singing, maybe not you, but somebody else. But everybody can sing. and that to me, I think, will help you like connect with people who are listening. I really believe that melodies that are, you know, feel like they're coming from right here, that feel like they're coming from your voice box, those are the kind of melodies that when you hear them, you'll catch yourself humming them the next day. And if you're trying to make music, I think that's probably what you're going for. You want somebody else to be impacted by it. So, you know, we're pulling notes from the E minor pentatonic scale, but what we don't want to do is two things that we're trying to avoid. We don't want to just play random notes. So like, you know, we're not improvising like that. We also don't want to play too much. We don't want to fall into the a pretty common guitar trap of like just, you know, trying to like shred at every possible moment, because, you know, on guitar you can just like endlessly play. Like no one wants to hear that. What we want to do is we want to play tasteful, and we want to play melodically, and using that scale. Which, perfect timing, there is the scale. So this is super easy to play on guitar. If you haven't looked at tabs before, this is what we call a guitar tab. We read left to right. The horizontal lines are the strings, and the numbers are fret numbers. So if you're curious, the first note you see, that's 0, that's going to be the lowest open string on your guitar. And then the 3 is the 3rd fret. It's pretty simple. And then we have open A, we're on the D string, and then I would recommend going back down. I'm going to do that one more time, and this time, if you weren't playing along before, this would be a great time to make sure you got your pick, make sure you're holding it with your thumb and first finger, all the stuff we talked about in those early lessons, and try playing along with it. So here we go. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And as you're playing, even if you're just practicing the scale, you always want to remember to breathe and try to like really be conscious of where you're like inhaling and exhaling and how that's relating to your hand. Because like we were saying, if you're singing through your instrument, a big way to make yourself feel like you're doing that is to like breathe as you play. And all we're really doing is we're using notes from that scale to just add some like simple extra sounds to those chords, like ornament it a little bit. So I'm going to demonstrate just one time through the chords because I've already played it a few times, but this time I will stick to just those small shapes that we were talking about earlier, so you can really hear how I would use those shapes and that scale that we just did to actually put together a nice chorus on a blues form. Yeah. So this is kind of the synthesis of all three things we've talked about. We've got our chords, we've got our form, and we've got our, I'm going to keep my hand away from the thing. We've got our chords, we've got our form, and we've got our scale. So we're taking those three simple things, mushing them together. Let's see how it turns out for me. And then you can give it a try yourself. So here we go. 1, 2, 3. So very simple, one chorus on the blues, with just like a little bit of ornamenting between chords, keeping the form, being really conscious about not trying to play too much crazy stuff, but just like simple, nice little ideas that kind of help us flow between those chords. That's really what we're looking for.
That's great. I love it. But do you think so? Like, this is the type of music that resonates with a lot of people, right? Like when they hear that, it's like, oh, you can play guitar, and it's so simple.
Yeah, I mean, I would hope so. But yeah, I mean, this, like I was saying at the beginning, the blues has like it's touched every kind of music, like and I feel like everyone who's grown up listening to American music has probably heard it in like some different way because the history is so long and it influenced so much other music. Like you can take like Led Zeppelin, um, was a blues band really at their core. They were influenced by like early acoustic blues musicians from the early 1900s. Like they even covered literal like old time blues songs. Eric Clapton, all those guys you might call dad rock, was big into the blues world. But even if you want to bring it further, I mean, blues led to jazz, which led to funk, which led to hip hop and rap and all that stuff. So I mean, in the last lesson we covered, or we didn't, we went through Truth Hurts, we went through Bodak Yellow, Cardi B. Neither of those things would exist without the blues. Even Cardi B, I mean, like was it? That's the melody for Bodak Yellow. You could take that melody and put it in a different context than. That was maybe not. That note's kind of weird, but it's my on-the-fly blues adaptation of Cardi B. But my point being is that hip-hop, rap, funk, pop music, disco, jazz, experimental music, rock, any kind of rock, classic rock, grunge, 2000s, like, pop punk, all came from the blues. I will die on that hill.
Yeah, and Kevin and I do a weekly show. We do kind of like the lists show where we best ofs. We talk about like 60s, 70s, 80s, 50s, 40s, 30s, whatever. I mean, we're talking about lists and like the best ofs and the greatest. We're talking about the greatest of all time. We're talking about people that have accomplished a ton of stuff. And this week we did the Grammys, and then the most interesting part of the Grammys was Bruno Mars. Bruno Mars debuted. This is the 1% of the 1%. He got to debut his new band on the Grammys.
Was that his new band with Anderson .Paak in it?
Yep, Silk Sonic.
Oh, yeah, that's
all right.
That's
now,
awesome.
So Bruno Mars, honestly, is incredible and deserves to like. How many people get to debut? Imagine you getting to debut your new band. Like, here's my new band on a national television.
That would be pretty fun.
It would be pretty fun. But since he's Bruno Mars, he got to debut Silk Sonic. Silk Sonic is basically a 70s soul band. That's what they are. 60s, 70s, Michael Jackson spinning around, all same suits, mustache. And
I love it.
That's what it is. But the music is eternal. Like, so yes, they are doing the 70s, 60s, 70s thing, and it is what it is. But it's all comes from what Nick was just playing. So I know what you're thinking. You user playing, 3 chords and then trying to like solo on that. But all the little kind of intricacies that Nick was playing just there, that comes in time. Like that little bend that he was doing on one of the notes, like to get bent up like a quarter step, or just like the simple movement that sounded really cool. That comes in time. But these 3 chords going back and forth from one another and playing kind of solo with the chords is the fundamental foundational part of being able to play all this stuff. And that's
I think also something maybe as if not more important than anything we've talked about today is listening. And I think that that's something that gets glossed over, especially in in like 30-minute guitar lessons, where I find myself, I catch myself, spending that precious 30 minutes trying to like practice something with a student. Um, and I sometimes forget the importance of saying, also, if you're practicing for 20 minutes a day, you should also listen to music for 20 minutes a day and like really like actively listen, like critically listen and get inspired and like figure out what they're doing. So if you're interested in this kind of music, I would recommend going way back, start at the beginning, look up names like Robert Johnson, look up Sun House, look up Big Mama Thornton. Those are some of like the real pioneers of this kind of like acoustic blues music. Big Mama Thornton was actually the first rock musician. She was the first musician to play like rock, like blues rock with an electric guitar. Elvis, stole everything from her. Get out of here with that. But listen to Elvis too. But let's see, Robert Johnson, Sun House, Big Mama Thornton, Chuck Berry, Buddy Guy, Muddy Waters. If you've heard of the movie, I might be showing my late 20s age here. A movie came out when I was a kid called Cadillac Records. It's kind of a corny movie, but it did a great job of going through the history of like early blues rock out of Chicago. It had it's kind of the story of Muddy Waters and like the first record label that was built up around him. And at the end of the movie, he's kind of like leaving his career behind. He's sort of coming to an end. And the people that walk up and say, "Hi, like, nice to meet you. We came here from London because we like were inspired by your music," is the Rolling Stones. And that actually happened. So, yeah, line from early American black musicians up through Rolling Stones, British Invasion, classic rock stuff, Beatles, all that stuff, Led Zeppelin, and maybe start there. And if you are into that, like, keep following it, keep following the line through, and I guarantee you, you'll get right to where we were last week with Dua Lipa and Cardi B.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with starting with Dua Lipa, Cardi B, and all that stuff.
I mean, we started with Dua Lipa and Cardi B.
We did. There's nothing wrong with that.
No, but that's my point, is that it's all good, because it's all coming from the same stuff. Like, nothing is better or worse than the other thing.
So once you tap the resource of your Spotify account and realize that there is, I mean, think about it. Like, I mean, Nick, you're old enough to know this, right? I mean, you're in your late 20s. So like, there, once upon a time, we had to carry CDs with us. Now we carry a trillion CDs in our pocket, and it's
I have every single CD ever made.
Yeah. So it is a tremendous resource to know that it's there. But you actually, there's a lot of people that don't realize that this music exists. So listen. That's a fundamental cornerstone of our method, is being able to take a song, right, and to listen to it, chunk it down, and just learn a couple parts so that you get the melody there. Another fundamental thing in any method should be just listening in general. Listen as much as possible. You're going to take a course in college someday, some sort of fundamentals of music, and they're going to have you listen to Handel and all sorts of classical music. But this is the fun stuff too, right? Like, that could be fun.
That's like I'm saying. It's all the same. It's all good. And you should listen to whatever inspires you.
Right.
But you're not going to know what inspires you until you give everything at least a once over. So, be an adventurer. Go explore. Go on YouTube, and like the YouTube recommended videos feature is the best thing ever created. Because if you spend an hour going through a YouTube poll of just being like, oh, that's a cool blues song. Ooh, I wonder why the next recommended video is Led Zeppelin. Weird. Click that and see what happens. Just, like, go through everything.
And then you get to see all the videos from the 80s.
Yeah.
Heyday, so.
Yeah. Chick Corea, Electric City, man.
Oh, Chick Corea.
Rocket. All right.
So today we're wrapping up lesson Guitar 4. We had been off the practice portal for a little bit, rebooting a little bit. Nick, I have great news. We have new camera angles that we'll have at Real Brave at the Queens location, if we can start recording there. We've bought a couple of new cameras, so you can do close up for your fingers.
That's
close
awesome.
up for your handsome face, and do whatever else you want to do with any other device that we have, and a microphone. Guys, we're going legit. What can I say? We're going legit.
Production value.
Huge production value. Thanks for all the comments here, and yeah, sorry we haven't been on the practice portal as much. For folks on Practice Pad, thank you for watching. I hope you've taken tremendous value here. Nick, what are the last closing words that you want to say to the audience?
Yeah, just to recap, like baby steps, baby layers. We have our 3 chords. We've got our form. We've got our scale, and we've got listening. So let's call that 4 things for today. And especially when it comes to improvising, the same stuff we were saying about listening is, be an adventurer. Take some risks. If you're practicing by yourself, improvise like no one's watching. No one cares. It's fine. Or even if there are people around, just like take the risks anyway. What's the worst that can happen? You play a wrong note.
That's right. All right, Nick, take us out with something. This has been the Guitar Lesson 4 in our live guitar series that we're posting here on Facebook and to Practice Pad. Thank you for being with us today. It's always a pleasure. Thank you for the comments, the likes. Please like us at Real Brave Inc. on Facebook and Instagram. Follow us there. Tons of stuff happening there. Tons of free resources. And, of course, Practice Pad. So thanks for being with us today, and we'll see you soon.